They say that silence can be golden. Sometimes it's kind of nice to sit back and relax in peaceful quietness. But what if you took it too far? What if you never spoke a word? What if you spent your whole life in silence? Two sisters, identical, silent. They were arrested and sent not to jail, but to a high-security mental hospital. For 11 years, they stayed locked inside Broadmoor. Still silent, still writing, still watching. If this happened to you, you might try harder to communicate. You might scream or cry or write things down. But for June and Jennifer Gibbons, speaking didn't come easy. They no longer wanted to communicate with their parents or anyone else. When they entered mainstream schooling, teachers had no idea how to deal with them. They would sit in class doing nothing, seemingly unaware of what was going on around them. The only time they seemed happy was when they were together. But June and Jennifer were different. They hadn't committed a crime to begin with, because they had no motive other than pure evil. Nobody knew how to treat them. And even when they were released, they didn't get to go home. After 11 years in Broadmoor, they met another patient named Ayanto, while June and Jennifer were in Broadmoor. They continued writing their dark stories, and these stories started to bleed into reality. Again, they were now more vivid than ever. In one story, a character mysteriously dies. She confessed to a nurse that Jennifer and Ayanto had made a pact to kill each other. Jennifer was dead. She'd taken an overdose of medication. It wasn't suicide. She used full sentences, proper grammar, and she spoke fluently, which was incredible because she hadn't spoken a word in 27 years. Was it a psychic connection, a miracle, or something else? Well, psychiatrists believe it was simply trauma. Years and years of bottled-up feelings and thoughts finally came rushing out when Jennifer died. It was a relief. It was like releasing a dam. But that still doesn't explain why Jennifer wrote a note to June, or why she only spoke normally after her sister died. She'd been taking that medicine for years, and it had never hurt her. And remember to subscribe for more chilling tales. How did she die? Well, the autopsy concluded that the medicine had built up in her body, and it finally killed her. But it's hard to believe that. She'd been taking the medicine since she was a child. It should have done something sooner. But this wasn't the only bizarre thing about Jennifer's death. She'd written a note to June. It said, "Don't follow me." But she hadn't written it in their secret language. She'd spelled out the words normally. And this was the first time she'd ever spoken or written normally. It was like her mind broke when she died. Jennifer had killed Ayanto, and now she would kill herself. Once again, June didn't need to know anything for sure. She just felt it. It was like having a premonition. And if she was right, then Jennifer was planning to take her own life. And in the next, that same character is dead. How is that possible? He was serving time for attempted murder, and he fell in love with Jennifer. She was his salvation. He was the first person she'd ever loved, or at least the first person she'd loved enough to show affection towards. Jennifer showered him with gifts. She acted strangely around him. She would laugh hysterically for no apparent reason, and she often gazed off into space. But Ayanto didn't care. He was thrilled to have someone love him. He proposed, and Jennifer accepted. They were too dangerous, so the state kept them locked up. So they stayed locked in Broadmoor for over a decade. Because despite not being able to speak to others, June and Jennifer understood each other perfectly. They read each other's minds almost telepathically. They had uncanny synchronized movements. Whatever one of them thought, the other immediately felt. They had a unique bond, a silent connection. They could read each other's minds. So when Jennifer disappeared on her wedding day, June knew exactly what had happened. She didn't need a phone call, a text message, or even a face-to-face conversation. She just knew. If one was doing something, the other would do the same thing. Exactly the same. It was like looking at a mirror. So their teachers nicknamed them the twins. And as they grew up, the silent twins. This may have been a natural reaction to something traumatic, like their father leaving the family. But whatever it was, it became permanent. June and Jennifer started whispering to each other. They developed their own language, which sounded like a cross between gibberish and singing. One day, they stole matches from a shop. Then they snuck into a local church and lit it on fire. They got caught and their parents were called in. They were furious. They sent June and Jennifer to Broadmoor Hospital. It was a high-security psychiatric facility for criminals who had committed crimes while mentally unwell. The twins were only 13 years old. Their families tried everything to get them to talk. They took them to doctors and psychologists. Nothing worked. All June and Jennifer wanted to do was stay close to each other and communicate in their own way. They weren't mute. They just didn't want to talk. And their strange behavior began long before they met the outside world. Until one day, Jennifer whispered something terrifying. "One of us must die so the other can live." They felt more comfortable in silence. And so they preferred staying in their rooms, writing stories about serial killers, demons, and vampires. They devoured horror books and watched scary movies. But some of the themes from these stories seeped into their real lives. Their father worked in construction. Their mother cleaned houses. When June and Jennifer were 2, their father left them and their 2 brothers and married someone else. This wasn't ideal, but it also wasn't an unusual story in the 1960s. Even though their father wasn't around much, both parents were loving towards their children, especially June and Jennifer. Soon after, Jennifer died. Suddenly, without reason, no illness. No injury, just gone. And then June began to speak. Normally, publicly, freely. Was it a pact, a psychic connection, or something we can't explain? Jennifer and June Gibbons, known as the Silent Twins, were born in Wales in 1963. From childhood, they refused to speak to anyone but each other. They had their own secret language. Fast, mumbled, impossible to understand. Not even their parents could decode it. At school, they were called ghosts. They moved in sync, wrote dark stories in secret, and lived in their own world. But behind their silence, there was something darker. As teenagers, their behavior turned violent. They set fires, broke into buildings. Their story isn't fiction. It's real. And it's one of the most disturbing mysteries psychology has ever seen. This is the haunting case of the Silent Twins. What would you do if you couldn't speak? What if nobody could understand you? They were born on April 11, 1963, in Ammanford, Wales. Their family was normal, or at least as normal as any family can be. But when the girls were 4, everything changed. The sisters stopped speaking altogether. This created a lot of problems. At home, their parents gave them chores and told them to socialize, but all that did was upset June and Jennifer. They were anxious around other people. When June and Jennifer were teenagers, they started acting out. Now, here's the thing about Broadmoor. Usually, patients are sent there temporarily. They receive treatment, and once they're well enough, they go home. While they were there, psychiatrists tried electroconvulsive therapy on them, but it didn't work. They were still silent. They still wouldn't speak. But this didn't stop June and Jennifer from forming new relationships. On the day of their wedding, however, she disappeared. She vanished without a trace. But this wasn't the only odd thing that happened. Well, June and Jennifer believed they had a pact. It wasn't long before police found Ianto dead in his cell. He'd cut his wrists, but June knew this already. June was rushed to the hospital wing, but by the time she arrived, it was too late. Soon after, June started talking. So what was it? Was it a pact? Some mysterious force connecting to minds? Let us know your theories in the comments.